Your relocation money is gone. My laughed. The company's investigation made her silent. You know that feeling when your whole world just stops? When everything you thought you knew gets flipped upside down in a single moment? Yeah, well, that's exactly what happened to me on a Tuesday morning in March, and I'm still processing it months later. My name is Sarah, and I need to tell you this story because honestly, if someone had told me this would happen to me, I would have laughed in their face. But here we are. And trust me, you're going to want to hear this through to the end because what my mother in law did and what happened to her afterward, it's something else. So let me start from the beginning. I work as a senior cybersecurity analyst for Tech Global Solutions, and last year I got the opportunity of a lifetime. They offered me a position heading up their new Asia Pacific Security Division in Singapore. We're talking about a $180,000 salary, full relocation package, housing allowance, the works. This was my dream job, and after 6 years of grinding it out in their Denver office, I finally felt like all my hard work was paying off. The company was incredibly generous with the relocation package. They deposited $75,000 into a dedicated account to cover moving expenses, temporary housing, shipping costs, visa fees, everything I'd need to make the transition smooth. The money hit my account on a Monday, and I was supposed to fly out the following month. My husband Jake was over the moon about it. He's a freelance graphic designer, so he can work from anywhere, and the idea of living in Singapore for a few years, we were both excited. His family, on the other hand, well, that's where things get complicated. Jake's mom, Patricia, has always had opinions about our relationship. She's one of those women who thinks no one is good enough for her precious son. You know the type. She's been making little comments about me for the entire 5 years Jake and I have been together. Things like, oh, Sarah's so focused on her career. I hope she makes time for a family eventually. Or, Jake, are you sure you want to be with someone who's never home? But when we announced the Singapore opportunity at Sunday dinner, Patricia's reaction was intense. Singapore? She said, dropping her fork with a clatter. That's halfway around the world, Jake. What about family? What about having children? Sarah, you can't just drag my son across the globe for some job. I tried to stay calm. Patricia, it's an incredible opportunity for both of us. Jake's excited about it too, and it's only for a few years. She turned to Jake with this look. You know, that manipulative mom look that says, choose me or choose her. Jacob, she said, using his full name like he was 12 years old, surely you can see how selfish this is. She's putting her career above everything else, above you, above family, above having a normal life. Jake, bless him, stood up for me. Mom, this is our decision. We're excited about this adventure together. Patricia's face went cold. We'll see about that. At the time, I thought it was just typical Patricia drama. She'd pout for a few weeks, maybe give us the silent treatment, and then eventually come around. I had no idea what she was actually planning. Fast forward 2 weeks. Jake had to fly to Portland for a client meeting, some tech startup that needed their entire brand redesigned. He'd be gone for 4 days, and since we were in the middle of planning the move, I was using the time to organize everything. Shipping quotes, apartment hunting in Singapore, the usual. I was at work on the Wednesday when I decided to check the relocation account balance online. I wanted to make sure the wire transfer for the shipping company had gone through properly. I logged into the bank portal, clicked on the account, and $0. I stared at the screen, thinking there had to be some mistake. Maybe the website was glitching, or I was looking at the wrong account. I refreshed the page, still 0. I logged out and logged back in. 0. My heart started pounding. I called the bank immediately. Hi, this is Sarah Chen, account number ending in 4782. I'm showing a 0 balance, but there should be $75,000 in this account. The customer service rep, bless her heart, was very professional. Let me pull that up for you, Miss Chen. I see the account, and yes, there was a withdrawal yesterday for the full amount of $74,847.20. A withdrawal? What kind of withdrawal? It shows here as an in-person withdrawal with proper authorization. My blood went cold. What do you mean proper authorization? The withdrawal was made by the secondary account holder, Patricia Chen, with valid ID and signature verification. I almost dropped the phone. I'm sorry, what did you say? Patricia Chen. She's listed as an authorized user on this account. I was seeing red. Patricia Chen, Jake's mother, had somehow gotten herself added to relocation account and had withdrawn every single penny. Ma'am, there has to be some mistake. I never authorized anyone named Patricia Chen to access this account. The rep was quiet for a moment. I'm looking at the paperwork here, and it shows that Patricia Chen was added to the account 3 weeks ago. The authorization was signed by you, Sarah Chen, and witnessed by Jacob Chen. My hands were shaking. 3 weeks ago, Jake and I had gone over to his parents' house for dinner. Patricia had been unusually sweet that evening, asking lots of questions about the move, seeming genuinely interested for the first time. At one point, she'd said she wanted to help with some of the planning and asked if I could sign some papers to let her help coordinate with vendors. I remembered signing some documents that night. Patricia had said they were just authorization forms, so she could call moving companies on my behalf to get quotes. Jake had signed as a witness. I trusted her. God, I was so stupid. I need to speak to a manager immediately, I said, my voice barely controlled. This is fraud. The manager, when she came on the line, was sympathetic but firm. The withdrawal had been made with proper documentation and ID verification. Patricia had walked into the bank branch with a valid driver's license showing her name as Patricia Chen. Apparently, she'd legally changed her name back to her maiden name years ago, but still went by Patricia Martinez socially, and had presented the signed authorization forms. She cleaned out the entire account, the manager confirmed. The withdrawal was made at 2:47 p.m. yesterday afternoon. I hung up and immediately tried calling Jake, but his phone went straight to voicemail. He was probably in meetings all day. I tried texting, "Emergency, call me now." But then my phone rang and I saw Patricia's name on the screen. I answered, and before I could say a word, she spoke. "Hello, Sarah dear." Her voice was different. Not the fake sweet tone she usually used with me, but something colder, more satisfied. "Patricia, what the hell did you do?" She laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh, you found out about the money? Good. I was wondering when you'd check. You stole $75,000 from me. That's a felony." "I didn't steal anything, sweetheart. I withdrew money from an account I was legally authorized to access. You signed the papers yourself." My vision was blurring with rage. Those papers were supposed to be for helping with moving quotes. Were they? I don't recall saying that. I just said I wanted to help with the move. And I am helping. I'm helping you realize that dragging my son across the world is a terrible idea. Where is the money, Patricia? Well, let's see. Jake's student loans are now paid off. That was $23,000. The rest went toward a down payment on a lovely house here in Denver. A house where you and Jake can stay close to family and start having babies instead of chasing career fantasies. I couldn't breathe. You bought a house? With my money? With money I was legally authorized to withdraw. And before you get any ideas about causing trouble, remember that you signed those papers voluntarily. Jake witnessed it. You can't prove I misrepresented what they were for. The smugness in her voice was making me sick. Jake doesn't know about this, does he? Jake will understand once he sees the house. Once he realizes I did this for his own good. You've been selfishly dragging him around with your career ambitions, but now he can settle down properly, with someone who actually prioritizes family. Someone who? Patricia, are you insane? Jake and I are married. For now. But marriages end, Sarah, especially when one person puts career above everything else. I'm just helping Jake see what his priorities should be. The line went quiet for a moment, and then she continued, her voice even colder. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to call your company and decline the Singapore position. You're going to tell them you've changed your mind. Jake and I will handle returning the house, and maybe, you'll get some of the money back eventually. But this nonsense about moving to Asia ends now. You're completely delusional if you think. Am I? Because right now, you have no relocation money, no way to make the move, and a husband who's going to be very confused when he finds out his wife's career ambitions have created this family crisis. How do you think Jake's going to react when he realizes your job has caused his own mother to take such drastic action? She was trying to make this my fault. My fault that she'd committed fraud. My fault that she'd stolen money that wasn't hers. My fault that she was attempting to sabotage my marriage and my career. I'm calling the police, I said. Go ahead. Call them. Explain how you voluntarily signed papers authorizing me to access the account. Show them the documentation with your signature and Jake's witness signature. See how far that gets you. And then she hung up. I sat in my office, staring at my phone, feeling like I'd just been hit by a truck. This woman had just stolen $75,000 from me, bought a house with it, paid off her son's debts without his knowledge, and was trying to manipulate the situation to destroy my marriage and career. But here's the thing about being a cybersecurity analyst. You don't get to where I am without learning how to think strategically under pressure. And Patricia had just made the biggest mistake of her life. She thought she was dealing with some helpless daughter-in-law who would just roll over and take it. What she didn't know was that she just declared war on someone whose job it is to catch people who think they're smarter than the system. I opened my laptop and started typing. If Patricia wanted to play games, I was going to show her what happens when you mess with the wrong person. But first, I needed to figure out exactly what she'd done and document everything. Because something about her story wasn't adding up, and I was going to find out what she was hiding. Okay, so when we left off, I was sitting in my office realizing that my mother-in-law had just committed what was essentially the perfect crime. She'd stolen $75,000 from me using paperwork that I'd actually signed. And she was so confident in her plan that she'd called to gloat about it. But here's what Patricia didn't know about me. I don't just work in cybersecurity. I specialize in financial fraud detection. I've spent the last 3 years developing algorithms that catch people who think they found loopholes in the system. And something about Patricia's story was bothering me. First things first, I needed to get copies of everything. I called the bank back and requested digital copies of all the paperwork Patricia had used. While I waited for those, I started digging into something that had been nagging at me. Patricia had used the name Patricia Chen at the bank, but socially she went by Patricia Martinez. That's Jake's father's surname. So when had she changed her name back to Chen, and why? I pulled up the public records database. One of the perks of working in cybersecurity is having access to a lot of information systems. What I found made my blood run cold. Patricia had legally changed her name to Patricia Chen exactly 4 weeks ago, 1 week before the dinner where she'd gotten me to sign those papers. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment decision. This was premeditated. She'd planned this entire thing in advance, changing her legal name specifically to match mine so she could impersonate me at the bank. But wait, it gets worse. I dug deeper into the records and found something else. Patricia had also applied for a driver's license with the name Patricia Chen at the same time. But here's the kicker. The address on her new driver's license wasn't her house with Jake's father. It was listed as my address, my apartment. She'd essentially created a fake identity using my name and address. My hands were shaking as I realized the scope of what she'd done. This wasn't just fraud. This was identity theft on a massive scale. She'd created legal documents showing her as Patricia Chen living at my address, then used those documents to convince the bank that she was a legitimate account holder. I immediately called the bank back and asked to speak to the fraud department. Hi, this is Sarah Chen. I called earlier about unauthorized access to my account. I need to report identity theft. The fraud investigator, a woman named Lisa, listened as I explained what I'd discovered. When I told her about Patricia's name change and the fake address, Lisa's tone shifted completely. Miss Chen, what you're describing is a federal crime. This isn't just unauthorized access. This is wire fraud, identity theft, and bank fraud. We need to get law enforcement involved immediately. What do you mean federal crime? When someone uses false identity documents to access bank accounts, especially for amounts over $10,000, it becomes a federal issue. The FBI handles these cases. The FBI. My heart was pounding. Patricia thought she was so clever, but she'd actually committed multiple federal crimes. Lisa continued, I'm going to flag this account immediately and start the investigation process. Can you come in this afternoon to file a formal report? Absolutely. While I was getting ready to leave for the bank, my phone buzzed with a text from Jake. "Hey babe, meeting's running late. Won't be able to call until tonight. Love you." I stared at the message, my heart breaking a little. Jake had no idea what his mother had done. He was going to be devastated when he found out. But then I got another text. This one from an unknown number. "Stop making trouble or you'll regret it. Some things are more important than money." Patricia was threatening me now. She was actually threatening me. I screenshotted the message and added it to my growing file of evidence. Every threat, every piece of documentation, every lie she'd told, I was building a case that would bury her. At the bank, Lisa walked me through everything Patricia had done. The security footage showed Patricia entering the bank with a confident smile, presenting her fake ID, and walking out with a cashier's check for $74,847.23. She knew exactly what she was doing, Lisa said, replaying the footage. Look at her body language. This isn't someone who's confused or making a mistake. She's completely calm and prepared. Lisa handed me a stack of papers. These are copies of the documents she presented. Take a look at this. The authorization forms I'd signed at dinner were there, but they'd been altered. The original forms had said something vague about helping with moving arrangements. But now they'd been changed to specifically authorize Patricia Chen to access and manage all financial accounts related to relocation expenses. She doctored the documents after I signed them, I said, staring at the papers in disbelief. That's forgery on top of everything else, Lisa confirmed. She took your legitimate signature and added language that you never agreed to. I felt sick. Patricia hadn't just tricked me. She'd created an elaborate fraud scheme that involved identity theft, document forgery, and bank fraud. This was way more serious than I'd initially realized. Lisa continued, "We've also discovered something else. This isn't the first time someone named Patricia Chen has accessed financial accounts. There was another incident 6 months ago involving a different bank." "What do you mean?" "Someone using the name Patricia Chen attempted to open a credit card account using similar documentation. The application was flagged and denied, but it shows a pattern of behavior." My mind was racing. Patricia had been planning this for months. The credit card application, the name change, the fake address. She'd been building a false identity specifically to steal from me. "There's more," Lisa said, pulling up another file on her computer. "We ran a credit check on the Patricia Chen identity she created. She's taken out 3 loans in the past month using your name and address as collateral." "What kind of loans?" "Personal loans totaling $45,000. It looks like she used these to make payments on something before she accessed your account." "The house. She'd used my identity to get loans for the down payment on the house she'd mentioned, then used my relocation money to pay off those loans and cover the rest." I was looking at a conspiracy that involved multiple banks, forged documents, stolen identity, and fraud across several states. Patricia hadn't just stolen $75,000 from me. She'd built an entire criminal enterprise around destroying my financial life. But here's where it gets really crazy. My phone rang while I was still at the bank. It was Jake, calling earlier than expected. "Sarah, what the hell is going on? I just got the weirdest call from my mom." "Jake, where are you right now?" "I'm at the airport in Portland. My flight got moved up. But Sarah, my mom called me crying, saying you're trying to get her arrested?" "She said something about money and the police. I'm so confused." Patricia was trying to control the narrative. She was calling Jake to spin the story before I could tell him what really happened. "Jake, I need you to sit down. Your mother stole $75,000 from our relocation account." Silence. "What?" "She changed her name legally to match mine, created fake documents, and withdrew all the money from our Singapore account. She used it to buy a house and pay off your student loans without telling you." "Sarah, that's insane." "My mom wouldn't." "Jake, I'm at the bank right now with the fraud investigator. I have security footage, forged documents, and evidence that she's been planning this for months. She threatened me when I found out." I could hear Jake breathing heavily on the other end of the line. She said you were making false accusations, that you were trying to get her in trouble because you were angry about something." "Jake, she committed identity theft and bank fraud. This is a federal crime. The FBI is going to be involved. Another long silence. I'll be home in 3 hours, he said finally. Don't do anything until I get there. Jake, I'm not going to stop the investigation. Your mother committed serious crimes. I know, I need to process this. 3 hours, okay? After he hung up, Lisa looked at me sympathetically. Family fraud cases are always the hardest, but you're doing the right thing. We finished filing the formal report, and Lisa assured me that the FBI would be contacted within 24 hours. The bank was also going to work with law enforcement to trace where the money had gone and potentially recover it. I drove home feeling emotionally drained, but also oddly relieved. The truth was out there now. Patricia's perfect crime was unraveling, and soon everyone would know what she'd really done. But when I got to my apartment, I found something that made my blood run cold. My door was open. I called 911 immediately and waited in my car until the police arrived. When we went in together, it was clear that someone had been through my apartment. Nothing seemed to be missing, but papers were scattered, drawers were open, and my home office had been completely ransacked. Looks like someone was searching for something specific, the officer said, looking around my office. Any idea what they might have been looking for? I knew exactly what they'd been looking for. Documents. Evidence. Anything that could tie Patricia to what she'd done. But here's the thing about being a cybersecurity professional. I don't keep important documents lying around in paper form. Everything was backed up digitally, encrypted, and stored in multiple secure locations. Patricia had broken into my apartment for nothing. The officer was taking photos of the damage when my phone rang. Patricia again. I answered on speaker so the officer could hear. Sarah, we need to talk. Patricia, did you just break into my apartment? I don't know what you're talking about, but I know you've been calling banks and making accusations. This needs to stop. I'm with a police officer right now, Patricia. My apartment was broken into, and you're the only person with motivation to do it. Her voice changed, became more careful. I haven't broken into anything, but Sarah, you need to understand something. If you keep pushing this, everyone's going to get hurt. Jake's going to lose his family. You're going to destroy everything. The officer was writing everything down. Patricia, you stole $75,000 from me using forged documents and a fake identity. The FBI is going to be investigating you. It's over. The FBI? For the first time, she sounded genuinely scared. Sarah, you don't understand what you're doing. This is family business. We can work this out. No, we can't. You committed federal crimes. There's no working this out. If you don't drop this, I'll make sure Jake knows exactly what kind of person he married. I have information about you that could ruin your career, your marriage, everything. What are you talking about? Your little gambling problem from college, Sarah. The debts you hid from Jake. The real reason you need this Singapore job, because you're running from financial problems you've never told him about. My heart stopped. She was lying, but it was such a specific lie that it could cause real damage if Jake believed it. The officer looked at me questioningly. Patricia, I've never had a gambling problem. You're making things up. Am I? We'll see what Jake believes when I show him the documentation I found. She was going to fabricate evidence against me. Create fake documents showing gambling debts or financial problems that didn't exist. She was escalating from theft to a full-scale character assassination. Officer, I said, I need to add extortion and harassment to the charges. After Patricia hung up, the officer finished his report and assured me that everything would be forwarded to the FBI. But I was worried. Patricia was desperate now, and desperate people do dangerous things. I called my company's security department and explained the situation. Within 2 hours, they'd assigned a private investigator to help protect me and gather additional evidence for the criminal case. They also moved up my start date for Singapore, offering to advance me money for temporary relocation if I wanted to leave the country while the investigation proceeded. But I wasn't running. Patricia had picked the wrong person to mess with, and I was going to see this through to the end. When Jake finally got home that evening, he looked like he'd aged 10 years. We sat on the couch while I walked him through everything. The evidence, the investigation, the break-in, Patricia's threats. I can't believe she did this, he kept saying. My own mother. Jake, it gets worse. She's threatening to make up stories about me having gambling problems. She's gonna try to turn you against me. Jake's face hardened. She's not gonna succeed. I know who you are, Sarah. I know what she is. What do you mean? Jake sighed deeply. She's done this before. Not the identity theft, but the manipulation, the lies, the attempts to control my life. When I was in college, she told my girlfriend that I was cheating on her. Completely made up stories with fake evidence. When I got my first job, she called my boss and told them I had a drug problem. I stared at him. Why didn't you ever tell me this? Because I thought she'd changed. Because she's my mother, and I kept hoping she'd grow up. But this, he gestured at the papers scattered around our coffee table. This is beyond anything she's ever done. So what do we do? Jake looked at me with determination I'd never seen before. We make sure she faces consequences for once in her life. We let the FBI do their job, and we don't let her manipulate this situation. But even as Jake was saying this, my phone was buzzing with calls from numbers I didn't recognize. Patricia's campaign to destroy my reputation had already begun.